you are a brown gay married couple.
Correct.
Called me in the room. I was like, Dad, I need to talk to you. I started ring. I'm like, Dad, I am. My sister was so annoyed in 10 minutes. She was like, he's gay. Pin drop silence. And those 10 minutes felt so long.
There was kind of the one odd-off attraction to a particular person here or there, which was a male, which kind of then reinforced it a bit more.
Of people that made hate groups.
Your parents should have not made you born.
You guys are the reason HIV is killing people, and we hope you get the disease and die.
COVID.
Yeah, the gays created COVID.
Really?
Do you think it would have been a bit of a different story if you were in a country where same-sex marriage was not legal?
I would be like, happiness is a choice.
What?
Message, yeah.
Hi everyone and welcome back to Figuring Out. I'm your host, Gemma Pamalu. We've now released about 10 episodes and we're now refreshing our series with the 11th episode. And today I'm really honoured to have on the podcast two guests, Rahul and Sushank, a gay, brown married couple. And their journey is just a journey full of love and one that hopefully will inspire many people who might be in a similar position, suffering in silence or in public. It's also Pride Month, and somehow it turned out that I could have these two on board to chat with us today. Before we get into this episode, my aim here is that irrespective of views, that you can seek to understand what they went through, how the journey was one full of love, and how we can make a difference in the world by being a bit more kind. So let's get into today's episode and let's chat to Rahul and Sushank. Sushank and Rahul, hi and welcome to Figuring Out. Really excited to have you and also very honoured. You, my first two guests, so my first duo.
Exciting.
And equally, I didn't realise, but when we were emailing, I did realise that it's Pride Month. So very honoured to have you here on the podcast. To start with, give us a background, or let's set the scene rather. What are we here to talk about today?
Good question. I guess being Pride Month, kind of showing our story first of all, from prior to meeting to actually meeting, but also to kind of inspire people in the wider community, kind of be a bit of an inspiration to people, to help people to raise awareness.
Great, and maybe give us the introduction. Like, we've got two guests. Who's who? I know your names, but for our audience, tell us about your respective journey to start with.
Go first.
So my name is Rahul. I am based in the UK. I was born and bred in the UK. I'm 31 years old. Inheritance of Gujarati. So my dad is from India and my mum is from Kenya, and they're both Gujarati. Yeah, that's kind of in a small nutshell who I am. I work for humanitarian aid as a procurement manager for the UK government. And as a side hustle, me and my sister have our own job or our own small little business as doing Asian bridal hair and makeup.
Oh, amazing. And how about you, Sushank?
So, hi, my name is Sushank. I'm born and raised in Germany. I moved to New York when I was 11, so I'm half Punjabi, half Bengali. I'm 35 years old. I all my 3 masters are healthcare related, but I'm currently working in mobile technology as a project manager.
Right, so you're based in the US and you're based in the UK.
Correct. Yeah, I'm from New York.
And you have a great love story. Yes. So tell us, how did you meet?
Very good question. Online dating actually worked. And our all online dating's Tinder.
Oh wow! So is that the early stages of Tinder? I don't know.
No, this was 2017. I don't know when Tinder came out.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2017. Sushank was doing a master's here, and he was in Northeast London. I was in Northwest London, and somehow we connected. I don't exactly know how we connected because my radius was quite small. Okay. So somehow we bumped into each other somehow, and just continued messaging each other. I think because I was probably Asian.
So basically what happened, one of my friends made a Tinder account for me.
Okay.
And then I connected with about a few hundred people.
Right.
But Rahul was the first one to message on my own.
Oh,
and
cute.
I instantly knew when I saw his picture that this could be something, because I saw like puppy love, which I was craving for.
Aww.
And then I didn't think he was Indian. I thought he was Brazilian because he doesn't look Indian.
Okay.
I'll take it.
His name was also Rahul, and then he was like, once we started talking, to I'm Gujarati. So then I think we connected, by the way, based on like core values that we both share.
Mm-hmm.
Like we both goal oriented, very big on family, very close to our sisters, and then it was just like from the get go.
So you met in 2017.
Yes.
We're now in 2023, and you're married,
Yes.
right? So if I may say, you are a brown gay married couple.
Correct.
How was that journey getting here?
Positive, which is quite surprising. I wasn't expecting it to be as positive as it was, or as it has been so far. Positive through family, positive through friends, positive through social media. There's a lot of positivity. There's obviously you have some form of negativity, but touch wood, and very luckily, mostly all the negativity has been through social media of people that we don't know. Nothing through family or friends, which is surprising in a way, but also more humbling and heartwarming.
And was that the same for you, Sushank?
Yeah. So basically, Rahul is my first only boyfriend.
Okay.
So I came out to family after getting to know him, and
Interesting.
I was I was not sure because basically we met on November 30th November in 2017, and 2 weeks prior to death in the family.
Okay.
And then so I had to rush back to New York for the funeral, and I told him exactly what had happened, and I think because I was so honest with him, he knew I wasn't flaking him. And when I went there for the funeral, I realized that at that time I was 29, so I realized I can lie to myself for as long as I want, but I need to be honest about who I am and really accept myself as well. And when I went back for the funeral, I actually told my sister first.
Okay.
About that I'm gay and that I potentially have someone I can see having a good relationship with. And then she said she always knew and she supports me, and that kind of gave me the confidence to tell my father. And that was really, really nerve-wracking because my dad is quite traditional. And
it's a brown household, right?
Yes,
I mean,
correct.
I think, sorry to cut you short,
Yeah.
but already with a white household, there's some questions,
Yes.
when you're not heterosexual, but for maybe people not family or brown household, I think there's this whole mainstream expectation that you're meant to be. No one really questions homosexuality, right? You're expected to be heterosexual, straight, get married, have kids. So
The norm, yeah.
the norm, and you confess to your dad.
And even with that, he's also very American too. So I called him to the room. I was like, Dad, I need to talk to you. And then my sister was there. And I get nervous. Rahul knows I start stuttering. I'm like, Dad, I am. My sister was so annoyed in 10 minutes. She was like, he's gay.
Okay.
And it became pin drop silence. And those 10 minutes felt so long, like an eternity. And then eventually, my dad, he came up to me, hugged me. He was like, listen, at the end of the day, my son, I love you no matter what. Just so you know, I've always known. I didn't feel like this should be addressed when you're ready to address it. And then always say, they give you the pep talk, have safe sex and all that. but besides that, it was quite heartwarming, I think. But I also think because we had a family situation, everybody, at least from my side, was very accepting due to that, because they realized, I guess, that life is short, and that acceptance and loving what's around you is so important. And I guess they embraced it more. Then obviously my dad told me one thing which I didn't listen to. He was like, don't feel like you have to tell the whole world, because he was like, sexuality is a very private thing.
Of course.
Don't feel like you have to carry that like a badge and tell the whole world about it. But I didn't want any negativity, at least when I was going back to London, and nor did I want people to say anything to family because of myself.
Right.
So then I made sure I told all my friends, all family members, from my aunt to my cousins to my friends to my grandma about it. And luckily, same as Rahul, everybody was very, very accepting.
So I think what I hear there is that you did confess to your dad. I mean, your sister was the
Yes.
first one who you confessed to, and then she helped you break the ice, break the news to your dad.
She did.
And Rahul, how was that for you?
Yeah.
Was it even earlier than Sushank? Because
yes.
Sushank, what I'm hearing is that you told your family at the age of 29.
Correct.
Was it even
so
earlier?
mine was I must have been about 24, I think, when I came out. So after university, a similar situation, kind of told my sister. My sister was like, I always knew. I was like, okay, great. And then I think she had told my mum, and my mum had asked me once, and I kind of said no. We were on a walk, and I said no, don't know what you're talking about, and kind of brushed it off. And then a couple of days or a couple of weeks later, she asked me again on the dining table, and it was just me and her. And at that point, I was just like, I'm a bit tired of lying now. So I was just like, yes. And she was like, I think she was a bit taken back because she wasn't expecting me to say yes. And then, yeah, kind of, she obviously was like, but how, but why, what does that mean? I was like, well, it's really hard to explain, but this is the situation. And then a couple of weeks after my dad had came back from India, and my mum kind of just said it on the dining table, and I was like, oh my God, because I was expecting my dad to have like a really strong reaction of like, oh my God, whereas my mum, I thought it would be more softer.
Right.
And my dad said, well, if you're happy, I'm happy for you. And that was it, which was very shocking, and I was not expecting it.
Shocking in a different context, right?
Yeah, in a happy, shocking way. And then my mum took quite a bit of time. She took about 6 months, I think, to understand fully.
Okay.
She confided in one of my cousins that I didn't even know this happened until like a year later. She confided in one of my cousins every now and then. And my cousin just kind of reassured her and kind of got her to understand. And that was it, really. But I think for my mom, the main thing was, but what about society? As a typical Asian parent, what about society? But here we are, however many years later.
It's a very beautiful story, and
thank you.
I think for me, what I find sometimes complex, you mentioned that, Sushank, and it's so very true. At the end of the day, your sexuality is in the bedroom, right?
Yes.
A normal couple, yes, you do make out from time to time in the public, right? We call it PTYA, public display of affection, right? But no one is really having sex out there in the public. Even with a gay couple, your sexuality is in the bedroom. So when I hear you talking about you coming out, right? And I think one of the things that I did, like, as preparing myself for this conversation, because this was going to be a different podcast altogether, right? I asked myself a couple of questions, and for me, it was more a question of, when will this stop? When will coming out, right? The term coming out. And I actually read up about it, and it seems like it goes back to the ancient days when elite girls were making the coming out into high society, right? If you think about Bridgerton type of scene.
Very true.
And then it got adapted from there. So the term coming out, do you think one day there will be a situation where no one will have to justify the sexuality, the sexual preference? Because if you think about it, even in forms these days, right? You have an option that says prefer not to say. So do you think one day the term coming out will no longer be of existence, or less important? Or do you give it importance?
To be honest, to me personally, it doesn't matter. Because I feel like you cannot generalize it. It's based on the person, and also, like, you know, like what you feel comfortable sharing with other people, right?
Right.
Like, we both are very open about like our sexuality, but also about our relationship. So if somebody asks me like, are you gay? I have no problem saying it. But for other people, like, you know, it becomes more difficult because it depends where they live. Some countries, like, you know, they're homophobic. They have like a lot of like penalties, whether legally or like enforcement, that kind of prevents those people of sharing or coming out in the public spectrum. While others, like, you know, it is maybe family pressure that they might have. That families maybe like, you know, if you have that, then we have no relationship with you, or something like that. And then, like, you know, sometimes also workforce, right? Even like a lot of big corporate agencies or institutions are not LGBTQ friendly yet. I mean, they're getting there, and now they only celebrate or share these, like, you know, slogans during Pride Month, but throughout the year you don't really see anything else, like, you know, that they're doing for the community.
Right.
So it's all of these factors that people have to consider. But I think mainly it's also like a personal journey. So people, like, shouldn't feel the pressure. I don't think that this will go away. I think how society is moving, it probably will become more and more into a category. Because think about it, even women these days, right, are exposed to such things. Oh, whether you are successful, like you still have, and when you like have a kid, you always like, you know, held responsible for maintaining a household.
Agreed.
It's never like, okay, she has her own journey or identity, and God forbid something is wrong at home or with, like, you know, with the upbringing of the child, always the woman gets blamed. And even in 2023, we still have that kind of like, you know,
Interesting.
emphasize.
Yeah.
So then I don't think something like, you know, with our community having to like express ourselves or like identify as coming out will have any changes, because women, like, you know, also face so many more like accusations and the way they have to define themselves even till now. So I don't think there will be any changes for us, to be honest.
Got it. And when you go back to your own journey, right? You say that at some point you felt like you couldn't lie to other people, you couldn't lie to yourself. Do you remember the particular point, or maybe around roughly what time? Or was that really a moment where you felt like, hang on, I'm not really attracted to women? Because there's this TED Talk and this psychologist called Lisa Diamond, and she said, who you are at birth doesn't define how your sexual orientation will be changing eventually.
Okay.
Right? So you were both born male, and the norm is, okay, you're going to have a sexual attraction to women. As you went through school, high school, university, into the adult life, was there a particular point where you realised, hang on, I'm not really attracted to women?
I think we both have quite different stories there, which is quite interesting. So definitely, there wasn't a particular point, but there was a over period point for me.
Okay.
So more when I was probably about year 8 in school, so that's about 14ish, I think, 14, 15. And it was mainly through bullying at school. I used to get quite name called quite a lot. Quite a lot of people go through in their life, normal, straight or gay. It's not anything different. But then there was moments more where I would hang out with girls or more have friends that are girls, and then there was kind of the one odd off attraction to a particular person here or there, which was a male, which kind of then reinforced it a bit more. And when you're young, you still don't really know, and this is going back about 15 years ago, so it wasn't really out there. You didn't really see it in TV programs or anything like that. Now it's a lot more advanced. Most of the shows have at least a gay couple or something like that. So it was all kind of quite new at that period of time for me. And I think for a lot of people it was new, so that's what they didn't understand, so they would just call out names for the sake of it. So that was kind of my kind of over that period of time, probably about 14 till 16, 17. And then when I went to university, I was exposed to more people. You naturally are exposed to more people, different races, different ethnicities, different everything. So I could understand it a little bit more.
Right.
And then after I left university and was working, that's when I was kind of fully a lot more exposed to it. I used to work in Harrods at the beginning, and there's a lot of LGBTQ people at Harrods, and that's kind of where my first main exposure was. So I already knew kind of from the age of probably about 15, 16, but didn't really fully accept it until later on in life.
And how about you, Sushank?
So basically, I always knew that I liked boys or men, you would say, from a younger age. But, you know, when you're young, you don't really think about these things, right? You just like being playful, or like just like building chemistry and friendship. But, and also had like a long-term girlfriend too prior to Rahul.
Right.
But like, you know, it's like your physical attraction and your emotions don't really match.
Interesting.
And I kept on like battling with that for a long time, until I realized that I am who I am, and no matter how many excuses I make, no matter like, you know, how drunk I get to make those things go away,
Right.
or like no matter how much I invest all myself in a relationship, it doesn't change the fact that I'm attracted to men, and that took a long time period for me, especially because my mom had passed when I was 21, so then I felt like more pressure of having to maintain that heterosexual identity, because I have a twin sister as well, which I've told you earlier. So then I felt like maybe my actions or my life choices will impact her marriage.
Oh, wow.
Because, like, you know, in Indian community, especially Punjabi, it's like reputation is very...
The family reputation.
Like, you know, and especially not having a mother in place. Like, you know, people like make comments, right? Like, oh, they don't have a mom, so that's why the household is a mess or stuff like that, right? So then I felt like I had that kind of pressure of maintaining that image, also being a boy from the family too. But then I guess I grew up a lot quickly, and I was like, I no longer care for people's opinion. And when I moved to London, I think I was in a good headspace where I was happy from within. I wasn't chasing a relationship or a career or family or friends, and that kind of aligned everything for me.
I sort of felt a lump in my throat when you talk about your twin sister, because, as you know, we bonded over that.
Yeah,
and you have a sister who's like 15 months apart, so we're all like twins pairs here. But I think thinking about how you were feeling maybe the burden of your sister's marriage, right? Not coming out, because to some people it might be trivial, it might be dramatic, but I completely hear where you're coming from, and I think the whole expectation of society suddenly feels on your shoulders, right?
I think it's really interesting, because it's also quite sad that the Asian community think if I do this, it's going to affect my family in this way. And it's a lot like...
like in the movies, right?
Yeah, and you can never just be happy in your own self because of X, Y, and Z is going to have a repercussion on something else. Hopefully we're moving a bit more forward, and I think over time we are, but it is, if this was India, it would be still a completely different story, because a lot of people would think, oh, my sister or my brother, or I'm going to get disowned, which is quite sad.
I kind of disagree with that in that sense, because because I always say, like, you know, we are diaspora, right? Like, you even come from South Asian like descent, and even like people here, right, they might have, their families might come from India or from India, but they're still like British.
Right.
So I feel like Indians abroad have a bit more narrow mind setting, because they're trying to maintain their tradition and roots. So hence they're a bit more like back-minded with the way they think.
Interesting.
Because they want to maintain their culture, because they're away from the country, like in the mother country.
Yeah. I do agree with that.
And I feel like as far as people in India, I feel like especially now, if you go to like cities like Delhi and Bombay, they are much more advanced in that kind of, they don't have that thinking, because they don't have that kind of like association, like with maintaining the roots, because they are based in India already.
That's a very different perspective.
Yeah.
And I think when I think about India, I guess, I don't know if it's publicly come out or not, but I don't want to say it, but, you know, the host of, we can edit this out or not, I don't know if it's publicly come out, but Karan Johar, for instance.
Yeah.
Right? So I think away from him, I do wonder in the rural societies whether that's maybe more of a taboo, but like in the big cities like Delhi, Mumbai and so on, maybe that's a bit more advanced. So no, that was a very different perspective from you. And one of the things I can see, both of you wearing your wedding bands. Congratulations once again. And I keep seeing the amazing stories from your wedding. Quite a big family affair, and even from the stories, I feel so much love for you guys, right? There's so much support, so much love. Why did your love story, right? Why did your love story work out when maybe so many other people are still struggling, not just to come out, but also to accept with themselves? What was there in your story that really worked out?
I think one key thing was honesty. Really, really honesty. We've been over 3 years long distance now, which is a very long time, and that can really make or break someone. And yes, we were engaged while we were long distance, but we weren't still married. And you know, you never know what's going to happen, but from the beginning we've had honesty and kind of really truthfully telling each other how we feel, and really open communication. I think they're the kind of really three main things: honesty, trust and communication, that have really made us bond stronger. And it's actually weird, when we went long distance we became closer than when we were together, because
what's the saying, distance makes the heart grow fonder, something of a sort.
And it is because we had to be more communicating to each other, because we have on a five-hour time difference, and you know, we don't get to speak to each other all the time, whereas when we're here we can just pick up the phone quickly and be like, all right, this is happening. But yeah, I think for me that was kind of one of the key communication. Like we had to have open communication from day one. And even prior to us meeting, when he told me about his family passing away, and like kind of just being really open and honest in that element, just kind of really helped.
I think for me, the three things that I would say made us very successful. First, most I think it's that we work as a team, and we have this since the beginning. There was never like, yes, we have our own identity and own goals,
Right.
but collectively we always move together as a team.
Yeah.
And that I think is very important, that especially where we are today. Secondly, I think we had a lot of support, whether it may be friends or family. Like I'm closer to his mom and dad
Oh,
than
that's
he is.
cute.
And I love Rahul, like of course my husband, but I probably love his family even more, like, you know. So I
That's
think that's
cute.
another reason. But he's the same too. My sister and my dad probably, if they could, they would switch. They would keep him
Right.
in London and they would keep him in New York because that's how much they love spending time with him. And I think lastly is the fact that we both chose to move forward. Like I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Like like every couple, even now we have like disagreements
But
and arguments.
that's just couple.
And
Yeah.
even because on social media you see happy pictures, like, you know, or like us always celebrating our love. That's not always the case. We had many ups, but also a few downs. And then because those downs, we focus on taking feedback, deciding to really understand that we both want the relationship to work, and no matter what happens, breaking up is not an option. And lastly, like, you know, knowing that no matter what, no matter how much it irritates me, for example, I still love him, you know, and vice versa. So knowing that love is always present, because, you know, when you don't love somebody, you cannot have a future with them, and that means even loving them with all the bad too.
Right.
But I think every relationship needs their ups and downs. I don't think it can be sailing always up. I think the downs or the arguments or the disagreements grow a couple more. You learn more from each other. You get more feedback. You see how you can improve in the next certain scenario. And I think it's very important to have ups and downs. I don't think it's always, not everything's flowers and, you know, glitter. It's, you need your downtimes to understand.
Yeah. Was there anyone or any group of people away from your first cousins, your family, like your parents, right? They sound all very supportive. Was there anyone at all that did question your decision, your decision of coming out, your decision to move forward in a relationship, or was it? Were you the lucky one?
Yeah, I want to say unfortunately not from my end. Extended family, a lot of my family live in India. They all were supportive.
That's
Family
amazing.
here was supportive. So when we got engaged a year later, my parents went to India for a family event, and me and my sister couldn't go. And they kind of held a little, not a little engagement party, but a little get together, and gave everyone sweets and all that. And that my whole family in India came for that. Even if we were two boys, they still came.
Right.
So.
And you both went to that? Or
No. So
just,
we didn't.
just
So
your
my
family?
parents were there,
Okay.
and all my dad's family's in India, so all of them were there.
Okay.
But luckily, kind of everyone was very supportive. I don't know if you have.
Same. Like we've been, whether it's like cousins, aunts, people like India, like abroad, everybody has been very, very supportive. I mean, no one said anything to our face, but even with the wedding, everybody seemed happy.
Yeah, that's
you never
amazing.
know.
That's amazing to hear. I think for people listening to us, right? For those who do not have the courage to brave it, to announce it to family and friends, or suffering in silence, what do you've got to say?
My main one is you have to love and accept yourself first before you can come out to other people. Sometimes it feels like it's a rush that you need to come out and, like, you know, you need to let it all out so people can understand and accept you. But if you don't actually love yourself, or if you don't really fully accept yourself, you can't expect other people to accept you. I think that's one of the main things that I see a lot, that if you're not confident in your own skin, you can't expect other people to be confident in you.
And my take on that would be like, happiness is a choice. At the end of the day, like, you know, like no matter what culture you come from, like, you know, like what your community puts you on in terms of like being in like attaining in personal and professional life, you need to be happy for yourself.
Right.
So it's not even about coming out, it's about like every aspect of life. You need to make your own happiness. So my take would be on that. Like if you're happy with who you are, you accept yourself, like Ross, you love yourself, you don't owe anyone an explanation.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And I'm probably going to make it sound easy, but you know, when you think about all these different, I think what's easy to see are the celebrities coming out in public, right? Elton John, Elliot Page, so many people have come out in the public domain. And there's this English writer, Jacqueline Wilson, she came out at the age of 74, right? So 74, and I think there's a moment of, there's that moment where you question, have you lost time, like not being yourself? And I think your message is so positive. And the reason why I say I make it sound easy, because obviously not everyone has the same courage, the same bravery, the same guts, and the same family support like you guys did. But to your earlier point, Rahul, like trying to be true to yourself and choosing happiness, whether that's in discretion or not, hopefully is a sense a bit of positivity to people. Your marriage, right? You got married in the UK or in the US?
So we got married, in the UK.
And I think the UK probably, I think same-sex marriage became legal here like almost like a decade ago. I think the Netherlands was like the first country. Do you think it would have been a bit of a different story if you were in a country where same-sex marriage was not legal?
For sure.
For sure. I think it would have been much harder.
Especially because when we started dating, it was already agreed on that I would move to London.
You're gonna hold him accountable now.
like to keep our to make our relationship work.
Right.
And we were lucky that the UK has like same-sex marriage laws and accept the same-sex legal marriage, because otherwise my immigration would not have been possible.
Right.
You know, which also impacts long stay.
I think it does also impact your relationship prior to being married as well, because most countries that don't allow same-sex marriage, people don't feel like they can be comfortable in the open public. Behind closed doors, yes, but you know, if you're going out for dinner or you're just going for a walk or you're having a picnic in the park, people like two men or two women don't feel like they'll be comfortable enough to do that. This is me just from what I think.
Of course.
It's not, obviously, I can't say I've done it because in this country you're allowed it. But yeah, I feel like people wouldn't be comfortable to be their self outside, which is quite sad as well, because then you can't truly be yourself again.
I think it's going to be a bit of an unfair comparison, but you suddenly, I was trying to put myself into your shoes, right? I think us girls and women, there's this expectation that if you see two women hugging or being tactile, it's all fine. Like girls go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom together, right?
Agree.
Men hugging, maybe a bit more intimately, or even going to the bathroom together. Can you picture that? I find it unfair that I think women can maybe get away with being gay, with being lesbians, because sisterhood, being tactile, being huggy is part of womanhood. Two men hugging is a bit questionable, right?
Okay.
But see, then again, for women too, also, right, it goes based on like presentation, for example. Like, right, if like you're very feminine as a person, right? Like I can see like very beautifully dressed. If you're another friend like you was feminine too, and you were like being intimate or like hugging, whatever, people wouldn't make a big thing about it.
Okay.
But if you're like another person, another friend who was like a tomboy, would have been a different reaction. Because she doesn't fit the norm of what a woman should dress or act like, right? And I think with men, that becomes the issue, because men are supposed to have emotional intelligence. Men are supposed to express love. So if any act of like even like hey bro, or like even like bromance, right? Right. Even in movies, media, it's always a bromance. Always like made as a gay joke or bromance, but that's it's just people expressing their love, right? Like for example, his sister's husband, our brother-in-law, I love him. I have no problem telling him that, and he had the same thing with me too. Right. Because it's a comfortable with each other, like you know. But I'm sure when people would see it out of context, they would judge that too.
That's a very interesting perspective. I didn't think of it that way at all. What's your take on kids, if I may ask, if that's not an uncomfortable question?
No, definitely. Sometime in the future, yes. My main priority is to get a house first.
I wish that for you guys.
Definitely it is on the cards at some point in the future. Just not really set in stone. I know some people are like, by this age I have to have a kid, etc. So for me, it's not set in stone. When it happens, it will naturally happen. But I don't know if you...
I'm super excited. I want to lie to you. Even after like our mini moon, we came back and we were having dinner, and I made like a joke to my in-laws. I'm like, I'm pregnant, and obviously my father-in-law has my kind of humor,
right?
So he knew I was joking, and my mother-in-law was like, "Sushank, you're a boy." And I was like, "Mom, anything can happen," and Rahul gave me the eyes like, "Stop talking." I cannot wait to have kids. I would really want a girl for us if you're lucky enough. So you're watching Shania, gonna be coming soon to the world, manifesting it.
One day maybe this will go to your kids, right? They can watch this. Can I just ask, like, logistically, or thinking about your potential parenthood that I wish for you guys, your house first as you wish, and the baby, or maybe both of them together. Are there any practical considerations, as in, and this I'm fully aware this might be an uncomfortable question, in terms of figuring out, are we going to go like for an adoption, or going to go for like a surrogate mother? Did you have any other gay couples to start with in your family?
Yeah, so we've had conversations. I don't think we've gone into deep diving of kind of adoption, surrogacy, the form that we want to do it in. We've definitely had conversations.
I mean, yes. So basically, we did say that we will try for surrogacy. And for example, like my mom passed away, right? For example, so if through surrogacy, like we can have her genes on the baby, like, or like maybe the baby might look like her. That would be important to both of us. But we also understand that surrogacy also has implications and risks, and doesn't mean it always is successful. Of course. So in that case, we also decided that if that doesn't happen, we would adopt. Okay. But if you would adopt, we both agreed on that we would adopt someone from India, because there are many kids who need a good family, and regardless of it being like our own through bloodline, or like we're adopting that child, it would be our child no matter what. So the love would be there no matter what.
I feel slightly, I was just saying earlier, I feel slightly emotional, and now suddenly this.
I think, sorry, I was going to say, I think also, like, I'm not just talking our content, but any content, if anyone is thinking of adopting or surrogacy, it's also quite a big responsibility. So you have to be mentally prepared for it, but also you have to be financially prepared for it, because it is quite a big financial commitment. Of course, it's a lifetime commitment, it's a child in the end, but if you're not financially stable yourself, it's quite difficult.
So one of the questions that I had for you, so as part of your journey, you decided to go public with this. So I don't know whether your pages were sort of, somewhat public already, but I can definitely see that you're now putting out your content, sharing your own personal journey. What was the rationale behind wanting to go public with your own respective journey?
So I start first. So my profile was always public, and I'm like an open book as a person as well. So I don't mind sharing personal things. But I think for Rahul, it was, I think once you were sure about myself and the relationship, he was more acceptable and open to it.
Okay.
As opposed to, I was like, oh my God, I have a boyfriend, guys, check him out. Like,
Right.
So that, I think it was also understanding that we're not only moving forward publicly on our own, but collectively. And I think for me, it was important celebrating myself. Because even though, like, I have, like, a lot of engagement following, like especially within the queer community, my Instagram is for myself. I love building experiences. I love taking pictures for myself that I can, like, once if I have Alzheimer's, I can look through those pictures and live those memories.
Right.
And also like capturing that moment, because nowadays everybody's so busy in their day-to-day life, and whether it's me or him, Rahul, hanging out or with friends or celebrating a friend's wedding or anything, it just allows us to look back at that special time we had together. So hence I'm quite open with my profile. And I think the other thing for me was sharing more personal stuff in regards to a relationship is after our proposal went viral, just because we not only got so much love, but we got a lot of messages, which we still do, about people helping in terms of like personal journey, or like how do you get family acceptance?
Yeah.
Like, you know, how did you work on being so confident or coming out? And I think that's why I specifically, I'm so open and honest about that.
How was the reaction from the internet, right? Because when it's public, then it's no longer just the family, it's no longer just the friends, right? What was the reaction?
In terms of family and friends reaction, we had no
course.
issue. We were quite lucky in that way. But we had very mixed reactions when our proposal went quite viral. So a lot of different pages kind of featured it, and it was very mixed reaction. A lot of positivity. However, there was a handful of negativity as well, which was interesting. But then you could see a bit of a trend of where this negativity was coming from, what ethnicities, what people, what cultures, stuff like that. So it was interesting to see that. It was trying to educate a lot of people. We tried to do a lot of that, but also tried a lot of ignoring as well. Purely for the fact it's just because some of it was really disgusting. Some of the stuff that was said was horrible. But our main area was just to educate people, inspire people. So the positivity that we were getting was really nice. Still to this day, we still get positivity for post. And for us, it just feels second nature just to put our kind of wedding out there or anything like this. But still people to this day reach out, which is actually really nice. So for example, we did a 1-minute video for a mental health campaign recently, and the organizer messaged us and said, your video was so inspiring, someone actually watched it and came out to their parents based on your video. Which was really touching.
And they use our wedding contact as well.
Yeah,
they use our wedding pictures, and also like they told their parents, she said love is beautiful, and with our pictures and them coming out, she said she was really, really happy that we collaborated. It's
like, even if it takes one person, you change, just one person.
Yeah, I totally agree.
That's the difference you've made to someone's lives.
And even with the negativity, right? Like, he doesn't care as much because he's quite thick-skinned. I'm quite emotional. So it does get to me, like, that's why, like, I was on a social detox for a while. I was not posting anything. I was active, but I wasn't sharing anything. That's why, in comparison to him, I'm still catching up with like wedding pictures and stuff like that. Because I was like, I'm not gonna post anything until I'm ready to deal with negativity. Because it's different, right? When you have one person saying they don't like you, or like 10, it's okay. But if people come in thousands, constantly be leaving negative messages.
I think it's also, sorry to cut you off, I think it's also different saying, oh my god, you're gay, that's not right. But then when the attacks get personal, and that's when the issue
What do you mean?
Yeah.
So there was definitely stuff like your parents should have not made you born, stuff like your parents should die,
or
your family should disown you should die. Like it
got
quite
brutal.
deep.
Yeah, or like go kill yourself.
And for me, I was just like, whatever, I don't really care, I don't know you. But for Sushank, he took it personally, but he's a bit more emotional.
It gets to you.
Yeah, it got to him.
It does, and the thing was like, what was like so like profound about it was every day. Like, we had, like, people that made hate groups. So then they would, like, constantly message, And then we had, like
an actual organised group?
Yeah, like, groups. Not even one, groups. They would message constantly.
Or they'll private message.
Like,
in a comment, they'll private message.
Or, like, they would, like, say very sexual things, right? Like, how do you both, like, get intimate? Like, and kind of mock that. Or, like, even something like sad, like, oh, you guys are the reason HIV is killing people, and we hope you get the disease and die.
There's a lot of COVID. We created COVID.
Yeah, that gays created COVID.
Really,
that gays created COVID.
But at some point, you just have to laugh at it after, and you're just like, really?
Yeah,
people.
I'm sort of speechless. I mean, the latter one maybe, but the rest is they're
so
quite
it gets
brutal.
heavy.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
But on the flip side, there was a lot of positivity
Yeah.
that came out, and that's what kind of the light under the tunnel. Like, you have to see that positivity. The people commenting, or people reaching out to us, people just trying to either come out, or a situation that we can help them in, whatever is possible. And that's kind of one of the main reasons for me, and I think for Sushank as well, for to have a platform on social media. We've been very lucky and supported by our parents and family, so we want to try and help other people and help them in any way possible.
And we both also acknowledge we have privilege. We both like come from countries that support like this community, right?
Yeah.
We're both from countries where they have like celebration, like Pride is
Defo.
actually allowed, and we both come from other two privileges which we didn't really talk much about. Like we both are financially independent. So if tomorrow our parents were like, we don't really agree with
disown
you,
you, yeah.
be like, okay, we can support each other and we can survive, right? And also we like, you know, are lucky we're educated. So God forbid we had trouble in the UK or in New York, we could have used our degrees and build a life somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
So people don't think about all those things. They do play a factor.
They do, but this is me being devil's advocate. They play a factor, and I totally agree. We are privileged, but we've also worked very hard to get to where we are. Whereas a lot of people kind of want it on their plate. There's a lot of people that kind of reach out and saying, "Oh, I'm gay. You know, I'm in India. Can you find me a job in the UK?" I'm not the Yellow Pages where I can just open a job and say, "Here you go."
You're not the visa or immigration officer.
Yeah, loads of people reach out to us saying, "Can you give us money?" And I'm like, I don't know you. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna give my hard-earned money to a complete stranger. I get it. You're in a difficult situation. I understand that, but me giving you money, what is that gonna do? Like, okay, you might move out for a month or two, and then after you're gonna ask for more. You're gonna ask someone else. Like, what? It's not the end solution. So
right.
I get we are privileged in that way, but we've also worked very hard. But I think being more privileged in terms of we're in a country, a Western country that is more open and accepting, I think helps a lot more. But then you have to think, 50 years ago, people in the Western country had to fight really hard to where we are today. And not technically, but kind of, today's day and age are fighting hard for people in like Asia for 5-10 years down the line of where they will be.
I think this was the first time that I heard privilege being described differently. As in, so far, if throughout this podcast, I mean, when you guys were talking about, you know, waking up to hate comments, what I'm hearing that is eventually building up a sort of emotional tenacity, right? Because you were probably not born that way. Life through these different experiences, and you became Sushank. You were saying it gets to you a bit more than Rahul, but you became somewhat more emotionally capable of dealing with this. And some of my guests who somewhat are on public platforms, they've talked about the experiences with social media too, and be it hate comments to do with the religion, to do with the faith. And yes, I do commend you for being so strong and for being willing to still, I mean, you could have kept your relationship quiet, right? You could have kept it to yourself and had this great journey, but you're out here sharing in the public platform. The Pride Month, does that mean anything to you? Do you feel like, obviously you've had your journey and it's been great. Do you feel like it's a wider celebration? Do you feel a certain sense of belonging, or not really?
It's definitely a wider celebration. It's definitely a wider celebration. And you see it now, you see it more and more happening. So like a lot of states in India do it, or a lot of different other countries are celebrating it more, which is much nicer to see that. Personally, I don't see it as just 1 month for us. And not being selfish, but this is just our norm. So it's a day-to-day thing for us. It's not a 1 month celebration. But it is nice for communities to come together, like all different communities within the LGBTQ community, to come together and kind of support each other. It's also quite nice to see more corporates now support, which you see that a lot more happening, mainly this month, but kind of throughout the year. And that's quite nice to see, because 5 years down the lane, 5 years ago, corporates weren't as active as they are now.
Right.
I personally think Pride is quite overrated.
Interesting.
And,
give us your take, Sushank.
And that is like, you know, I feel like it's become very commercialized, and also become very like, in terms of being politically correct, Hence, you see a lot of agencies and institutions celebrating Pride with the logo and having a rainbow for 1 month. Like, you know, yes, we support you guys. We celebrate love of all kind. But then outside the 11 months, what are these institutions really doing within the community? How much are they donating? How much are they investing? How much are they letting their own people at workplace have a safe environment where they can express themselves from the community, or like get like, you know, certain resources, right? Like that they can, or training, and how many of those people get promoted. So I feel like it's really nice, yes, to have a celebration of any kind.
But you need to see more. You need to see the actual concrete results.
Like, I can go today too, right? Or like, you know, I'm a feminist, but then what am I doing as a man, like, you know, as a gay man, changing women's rights, or like supporting like new women in and empowering them. So anybody can wear like a Pride t-shirt, be like, yes, like, you know, I love you guys, but then what is a one person or agency really doing?
Right.
Interesting. I agree in a way, but I think also, obviously, they do it particularly in the month of June for reasoning. But I think it is becoming a bit more commercialized in that way, like Sushank said, and sometimes you lose the essence of actually why we celebrate it, which is the reason 50 years ago or over 50 years ago for Stonewall that happened in New York. Like, that is one of the main reasons. Like, it was a big fight. We're privileged, I guess is the word to use again. We're privileged that we've been lucky that it's kind of natural now in society. But over 50 years ago, it wasn't the norm. It was, they had to fight really hard to get to where we are now. And that's why we kind of lose that sense of celebration a little bit of how far we've became.
Right.
It's just became this big kind of, became a bit more commercialized in terms of the parade and kind of, that element.
But it's not even about the parade, right? I'm not even being insensitive. Like, I'm a very proud gay and I love my community. But it's a sense that a lot of people don't even know that it was trans women that, like, you know, started the whole, like, Stonewall. And
I do know.
Like, you know, yeah.
Thank you for raising awareness.
And really, like, made that change. Like, you know, it was them that really fought against building a better future for us.
Right.
So, and yet today they're struggling, like, you know, whether it's like, you know, access to proper healthcare, or like job security, or like protection, right? Legal protection, because they are like always otherized and over sexualized, or like, you know, are treated differently because people judge them right away. Even like if a trans woman looks like a female, feels like a female, people don't see her as one. And that is also discriminatory, right? Because identity, like you said, right? Like, we're not born gay. Biologically speaking, yes, we have, like, you know, different sense, as opposed to you being attracted to a male,
right,
being a heterosexual. I'm being attracted to a same-sex person. But at the end, like, you know, you learn these things also through environment, right? So then, if you're celebrating a community, what are you really doing for the community other than celebrating them? If you can give them, like, you know, access to proper rights, or changing or making their lives in a better way on a day-to-day basis.
What I'm hearing is that even within the LGBTQ community, right, there's another level of discrimination.
100%.
Being gay, or being a gay man or women on this feels like it's easier to some extent. That is transgender. Right?
I think transgender people are like, there's more of a fight.
Yes.
Than for gay people, I think.
Especially when they have color too. Like transgender women of color, I think it's harder for them.
Or men.
Yeah, or men. And even like I personally think, right, obviously like gay men struggle, but I think in some aspects lesbians even struggle more. Like, you know, especially in the South Asian community. Like, I don't have any.
Well, I don't know any as well.
Well, I have one friend, but that also only through social media. That I know who's Indian as well. And then I came across a few, but I don't have any close friend that's Daisy who's identified, like, you know, as homosexual. So I can't even imagine, like, you know, like being in their position, because it's so much more difficult.
I actually have one, and I'm not going to give away the country because that might give away who's that friend. But She's definitely hidden it from her parents. She's had her parents visiting, and she's presented her partner as her flatmate, right?
Yeah.
So it is a struggle. It definitely still is. Sushank and Rahul, what's been interesting is that I had this list of questions. I didn't even once take a look at my questions because this conversation was so fluid and felt definitely very conversational. And I can tell you, I've learned so much from you guys, and there's just so much love and so much respect that I can, like, for each other, but also your family's in here. I haven't met them, I don't know them, but I can definitely feel the support from your family. So last question for this podcast talk. What's the one thing that you can both have a take on this one? What's the one thing that you think you've figured out so far in life?
Interesting question. Figured out in life.
I think for me it's accountability. You know, like at the end of the day, like my 35 years, whether good or bad, have shaped me into the person I am today. Whether it was a positive experience or negative experience. So I take accountability for that, because all those actions, reactions, decisions ended up getting me where I'm today. So I think accountability is very important, because sometimes, like, you know, you blame other people or situations.
True.
Or your environment for not being fair to you. But if you take accountability of anything in life, I feel like it just makes you into a stronger person. That no matter what life throws at you, you are strong enough to tackle that.
That's very strong. And how about you, Rahul?
I think one thing I've figured out in life there, that people come and go. People come and go in life, but people that are there are always there. Your true people that you know are going to be lifetime people. And some people that you think are lifetime people are not always your lifetime people. Some people that you might have not really connected with become your lifetime people, which is quite an interesting way. And it doesn't happen always from a young age. You know, you might get in contact with someone, or you might just randomly meet someone at the age of 40 and they might be a lifetime friend or a lifetime person. And I think that's really important. But the people that are there for you through thick and thin are the people that you need to pay the most attention to and, like, really go above and beyond for them, because they're the people that are actually there for you.
And I also wanted to add another thing, which I forgot to say also, I think, the power of being kind. Like, you know, because for me, example, I picked Rahul as a partner. Even when I met him for the first time, I told him I love him and I want to marry him. Because he was kind. He was kind enough to be aware of my surroundings, how I felt that time, but also with my chronic condition. Because I told him, like, I suffer from this. You have two options. Either you stay and we don't ever talk about it again, or the door's right there. And he said, I like all of you, and that's part of you, you know? And that has really taught me as well, even with my, like, you know, mom as well, that being kind is so important. Because right now, too, are you smiling in front of me? I met you for the first time, so my interaction with you is important, because after this, if I'm mean to you, that can push you more on the edge, right? You'd be smiling right now, but internally, I have no idea how you're feeling.
Right.
But if you're going through that, maybe that fight from within, and I'm kind to you, it can help you heal.
You know, I've recorded probably like 10, 11 podcasts, and I'm generally a very emotional person. Like, things get to me and I find things beautiful. I find love beautiful, like anything. This is probably the first podcast, and I mean it, where I did feel emotional, but I like tried to keep it in check. Your story is absolutely beautiful, and you're so brave for sharing that with everyone. And I'm truly, truly honored that you guys came down, took the time for being here while you're visiting from the US. So thank you so much, guys. Absolutely love having you, and I really hope that, you know, your message, your journey inspires so many people, whether they're suffering in silence or in public. Whoever's going through a similar journey, I think the world deserves more people to be in love and to be able to share the love. So thank you so much, guys. Absolutely honored to have you here.
I think, sorry, just to also raise one more. Sure. I think it's really important, podcasts like this, to express new topics and topics that are not the norm. And I think you're doing an absolutely fantastic job for really allowing people to say their true stories, but also making them really comfortable in the setting, because it can be topics can be quite emotional, quite difficult to speak about, but you make it really comfortable. And I think raising awareness for topics like this, or raising awareness in general through these kind of podcasts, is really important. So the work that you're doing and many other people that are doing podcasts is really important for each individual topic out there. So thank you from our
Thank you, guys.
I agree. And what I liked about it too is that like you said initially, this is for you. You want to learn about stories. You want to connect with people. So it just shows how passionate you are about it. And when this passion is a success. So, mark my words. Like, sooner or later, you will be our big podcaster.
You really
We're
can't.
manifesting it right now.
We're manifesting it together.
Yeah.
I'll hire you guys as marketing managers. Twins, we're both twins.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, guys. Thank you
much.
so Hi, everyone. Today's episode was a bit of a different one for me, and a different approach that I had to take to interview my two guests who were actually very open to talk about their journey. All I ask from you, if you've enjoyed today's episode, is to please press the subscribe button from wherever you're listening. At the moment, most of you listen to the show on Spotify, but not many of you are subscribed. So all I ask is this little favor to help support the show as we move forward. Thank you so much. Your support means a lot to me, and I'll see you next week.